In this documentary, we will trace how a government turned a medical diagnosis into a life sentence, and how they enforced it using paid bounty hunters who took people from their homes for $10 a head. We will follow the children who were born inside this exile and taken from their mothers at birth, raised under false names on other islands. Most of them never told the truth about who they were, and we will arrive at the moment that should have ended everything and ask why, even after that moment passed, Hawaii kept the exile running for 23 more years. You're told you're sick, not sent to a hospital, sent to a peninsula sealed on 3 sides by open ocean, and on the 4th by a 2,000-foot volcanic cliff. No buildings waiting, no doctors, no way out. The government dropped you there and expected you to survive. The Hawaiian government called this public health. The people sent there had another name for it, Makanalua, the given grave. By 1860, leprosy was spreading through the Hawaiian Islands. No one knew exactly how it spread. No one knew how to stop it. What the Board of Health did know was this: they needed somewhere to put the sick, somewhere permanent, somewhere no one could leave. The disease had arrived from abroad, carried by foreign merchants and laborers in the 1840s. But it was Native Hawaiians who suffered its consequences most. In 1865, King Kamehameha V signed an act to prevent the spread of leprosy. It didn't just quarantine the sick, it criminalized them. Anyone alleged to be a leper could now be arrested, taken from their home, loaded onto a boat, delivered to the Board of Health like cargo. The board chose Kalaupapa Peninsula on the island of Molokai for a single reason: geography. 3 sides of open Pacific, 1 wall of volcanic cliff no one could climb. The government expected the settlement to be self-sustaining. The sick, the frightened, the barely alive, they were expected to grow their own food and keep themselves alive. On January 6, 1866, a schooner called the Warwick departed Honolulu for Kalaupapa. It carried the first 12 people to be exiled under the new law. They arrived to nothing. No buildings, no shelter, no potable water. They built their first homes from rock enclosures and caves, with walls of sticks and dried leaves. Some accounts say passengers were pushed from the ship and told to swim to shore alone, not guided, not carried, pushed, and told to swim. Word spread quickly through the islands. Hawaiian families began hiding their sick relatives. If the authorities didn't find them, they might keep their lives. That was when the bounty hunters appeared. Government-authorized agents paid $10 for every person they delivered to the Board of Health as a suspected leper. They took people off the streets, from their homes, from their beds. Suspects were brought to Kalihi Hospital in Honolulu and declared one of 3 things: clean, suspect, leper. If a doctor labeled you a leper, your name was removed from your family, from your community, from your life. Between 186-6 and 1969, more than 8,000 people were exiled here. 9 in 10 were Native Hawaiian. The disease did not discriminate that way. The policy did. Children were exiled too. A 13-year-old girl named Nancy Bread was shipped to Kalaupapa in 1936. She spent the next 79 years of her life on the peninsula. If a woman became pregnant at Kalaupapa, her baby was taken from her at birth, cleaned, wrapped, and removed, raised by strangers on other islands under a different name. Historians call them the lost children of Kalaupapa. Many discovered the truth in their 50s and 60s. Others died never knowing where they came from or who had loved them. In 1873, a 33-year-old Belgian priest named Father Damien volunteered to go to Kalaupapa. He was the first person ever to make that journey by choice. He built shelters, he organized burials, he dressed wounds the medical establishment refused to touch. He gave the community a witness, someone who saw them as people. In 1889, Father Damien died of leprosy. He had contracted it from the patients he chose to live among. The Catholic Church eventually declared him a saint. By then, the exile had been running for 23 years. Families had been separated across islands, across generations. It would run for 80 more. And here is where things get complicated. What the Board of Health knew, and chose not to say publicly, changes everything that came before. 95% of the human population is naturally immune to leprosy. Immune, as in they cannot catch it, not even with sustained direct exposure. The disease spreads so poorly that most researchers classify it as mildly contagious. It requires months of sustained close contact to transmit, and even then, most people remain unaffected. The 8,000 people exiled to Kalaupapa were sent to protect a population that, in the vast majority of cases, could not have caught the disease being suppressed. And then there is 1946, the year that should have ended everything. That year, a drug called Promin arrived in Hawaii. Sulfone treatment stopped Hansen's disease cold. Patients became non-contagious within days. The disease could now be cured at home. The medical justification for Kalaupapa ended in 1946. The law did not end until 1969. 23 years of continued exile after science had made the exile unnecessary. New patients were still being separated from families in the 1950s, not because they were dangerous, but because the law was on the books and no one changed it. Scholars who have studied the global history of leprosy isolation note a striking pattern. The disease was largely extinct in Europe and relatively rare in white Western communities. Most isolation colonies, from Hawaii to India to Africa, held people who were poor, dark-skinned, and under colonial rule. The medicine was consistent, so was the target. The medical necessity was always fragile. The political utility of having a mechanism to remove people, legally, permanently, with documentation, was considerably stronger. The patients at Kalaupapa understood this. In 1897, they sent formal petitions opposing the U.S. annexation of Hawaii, exiled to a cliff at the edge of the Pacific. Still fighting? On April 11, 1969, 103 years after the first 12 people swam ashore, the Hawaiian government finally abolished the isolation law. The residents of Kalaupapa were told they were free to go. After decades of exile, most of them had the same answer. They stayed. Some had spent 40, 50, 60 years on the peninsula. Their families outside were gone. Society still feared them. There was nowhere to return to. The exile had lasted so long, it had become something else. The prison had turned, over generations, into the only place that felt like home, and the lost children remain a largely unresolved story. Thousands born at Kalaupapa, taken at birth, given false histories. Hawaiian state law restricts their birth records for 80 years. Many of these children, now in their 70s and 80s, have still never been able to confirm where they came from. Some recently have, many have not. Today, 8 people remain on Kalaupapa's official patient register, ages 83 to near 100, living voluntarily on the peninsula where they were sent as children and could not leave. The oldest among them arrived as a child, separated from her family, delivered to a peninsula with no exit. She is still there. Kalaupapa National Historical Park exists today at those patients' own request. They asked Congress to preserve the story, not to bury it, to remember. What does it mean when the place built to contain you becomes the only place that will have you? What does it mean to call a given grave home? There is no clean answer, but there are 8 people on a cliff in Hawaii who have been sitting with it for a very long time. They called it Makanalua, the given grave, a peninsula chosen because no one could ever leave it. 8,000 people arrived there without a choice. What history never predicted, what no one predicted, is that when they were finally given one, most chose to stay. Not because they were too broken to go, because when a place holds all your grief, all your people, all your dead, it becomes yours. Subscribe to Elena's Illustrative daily documentary, a new story every day.